Hi everyone, and welcome to the Dawn Jarvis Show. This is the podcast where I talk to and about leaders, professionals, and business owners about who they are, what they do, and why they do it. Would you like to learn how to be financially free? Today, we're going to learn about how to build financial confidence and security with my guest, Calvin Cowell. Calvin is a chartered banker with 15 years experience helping customers and clients to become homeowners, investors, entrepreneurs, and savers, helping them down the path to financial freedom. We are going to discuss how understanding money is crucial to affording self-autonomy and freedom. Building wealth isn't just about your income, and that financial health and well-being plays a crucial part in your mental and physical health. Hi, Calvin. How you doing?
Very good. Even happier that the sun's out now. So,
it's so nice. It is so nice, isn't it? And it's changed. It's changed.
Especially when you've got young children, or if you particularly don't live somewhere where you've got outdoor space, being able to get out to the park and get out into open doors and go for walks, bike rides and things, it's brilliant. And again, we're going to talk about mental health, I'm sure. So, this all plays a part in that, especially for me personally. Outdoor time with the children is really, really important. So very happy.
Brilliant, brilliant. So Calvin, it's really great to see you. Really looking forward to our chat. My first question is usually, we know each other. Calvin and I met at an event. We have a mutual friend and mentor. And you were in banking for a long time. You went from retail to being working with a large international bank, and now you're working alone. How did you get to where you are today?
So I suppose it's, for me, I've always enjoyed helping people. My whole career has been spent generally in retail environments, and I've worked at Sainsbury's, I've worked at mobile phone stores, I've worked at the health and fitness industry, but I've always been frontline facing. I've never had a back office role. And the natural transition for me going into banking was really about how can I help people more? And particularly in my community, the Afro-Caribbean community, I've seen where, sound financial knowledge or financial capabilities can really elevate your life chances, your outcomes in life. And for me personally, I didn't really understand money myself. I had to manage the books as part of my role as a manager in some previous roles, but in terms of managing personal finances, that was something that I wasn't always confident with. So one of the things that was important to me was work-life balance. So going into an office-based 9-to-5 role where I can help people, but also understand money at the same time. The financial services industry really ticked a lot of boxes. So that's how I got into banking. I've always been in retail banking, helping customers on the front line, as I said, helping them with their savings needs, with their lending needs, with their current account needs, but also with their international needs, and whether that's through payments, through relocation, or helping them to understand how to manage their legacy, so wills, insurances, investments, and so on. It's just all about helping people holistically to achieve their personal financial freedoms.
Brilliant. I really like what you said there. So it's sort of, it's going to sound funny, but it's a bit like nursing, isn't it? It's a bit of a cradle to grave thing, isn't it? Sort of like you have to think about money all of the time. And I know that when my children who are now grown up, when they were born, I started a savings plan for them that wouldn't mature until they were 21. It was a very small amount, but they were very grateful for it when they turned 21. And I also liked that you're talking about. Oh no, so I'm from, my parents are Jamaican. I'm not sure where your parents are from, Calvin.
St. Thomas, Jamaica.
Oh, say Jamaican. And so like, my mum and dad always talking about their funeral and sort of like paying for their funeral and thinking about, and not so much thinking about wills, but maybe they should. But sort of like my dad relocated to Jamaica and stuff like that, and that all requires sort of like planning around your finances, or it impacts on that, and that's things that people think about. So it is truly international. So like I look after my dad's pension, and sort of like he's in Jamaica, so that's an international thing. So I really like that. So and sort of that leads on to our first point, really, that understanding money is crucial about self-autonomy and freedom. I know that's something that's really important to you, and I wondered if you wanted to talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you made a good point about, the nursery analogy. And there's a lot of research out there available that people generally don't understand how to manage money. So there was I won't call it an experiment. There was a study by the OECD back in 2016, where they sampled, or they basically done a survey on 50,000 people globally across all continents, and they gave them some financial literacy quiz questions, if you like.
Yeah.
And it was stuff, questions about, do you understand insurance? Do you understand inflation? If you made a purchase of X amount and you earned X amount of interest, how much would that be worth later on, et cetera, et cetera. So they gave them quiz questions, and the scores were generally low. In the UK, we scored roughly average globally. So we're not down the bottom, but we're far from being one of the top globally. Women scored slightly less than men. One thing they didn't look at was financial literacy from an ethnicity point of view. It's something that I've looked into. And generally speaking, ethnic minorities are slightly behind their white counterparts. But overall, none of us is doing particularly well. So understanding money is really, really important. And there's a lot of ways you can build your confidence in terms of financial literacy and understand how money works. The all-party parliamentary group has now called for financial literacy to be taught at school level, at primary school level. So there is definitely recognition that there is a gap, but also the opportunities for not just individuals, but for society more broadly, if people were more confident understanding money and how that would benefit everyone generally. So there's much to do in this space, I suppose. It's something that I do as part of my role as a director at Gold Star Consultancy, where I do personal financial reviews with individuals, but also workshops with organizations, helping their employees to understand how to manage their money better, budgeting, saving, but also understand exactly, as you said, you look after your dad's pension, how to maximize employee benefits, for example, pensions and tax efficient saving products, for example, employee childcare and so on and so forth. So there's lots to it, but we're making good progress.
That's really good. That's really good to know, actually. And I think we need to, as a community, as women, as whatever, as children, or we need to teach our children about this. And when you were talking, I was thinking about sort of what I was taught about financial literacy at school, and what I remembered is when I was little, and I think it was because I'm quite elderly, it was related to decimalisation, and we had plastic coins that we used to play shops with. That's how we did that at school.
I remember. We're showing our age now. I remember that.
So I remember that, and I remember when I was a bit older, we did do a little bit about interest rates, and they also showed us how to, and this is so definitely showing our age, how to use a checking account, how to write a check, and sort of how to balance the budget, sort of thing. So that seems actually quite good, really, doesn't it? Around, because it was very practical. And so that's good. But and my daughter, who didn't leave school that long ago, she told me that they did teach them in sixth form about compound interest and credit cards and loans and what that actually meant. So I mean,
that's really good, because
yes,
I didn't get that.
No,
I don't know, maybe it was a type of area that I grew up in. I don't know, but we kind of learned the basics, and that was cool. And just a side note, I'm a bit of a beast at Monopoly as well, so I kind of understand how that how to save your money so you can then buy that property or buy that street or whatever. So I was a bit of a beast at Monopoly. If anyone wants to see me online again, you're more than welcome. It's all digitized now. You can do it online, right? But I think what's important to note as well as part of these conversations is that, to understand money, you don't need to be a maths genius.
Yeah.
I'm not a maths genius. I understand the basics, and I've done a LinkedIn post recently, just talking to the fact that I help my teenage daughters with their GCSE homework, their maths homework. But I'm by no means a maths genius, and you don't need to be a maths genius to understand how money works, right? I think it's just really important to understand what the opportunities are, so what money can do for you, but also understand, how best to not just, also to set goals and to constantly review your progress with that. So I suppose it's just about understanding the benefits and keeping track of what you want to achieve personally.
Brilliant. That's such good advice, and also to get help from people that can help you with that, such as yourself as well, if you don't understand and or need some help. Sometimes it's not just about understanding. So even I, who's not good at maths, has basic understanding, but sometimes I just need help with explaining to what that actually means practically. Love your Monopoly analogy. I wasn't very good at Monopoly, but it's very practical. So it always ended up in a row in our house. Somebody got upset. There was stealing. There's all sorts of things going on. So
Absolutely.
there.
Oh yeah, I was a beast. I had to, when I'm playing with my younger siblings, and I had to kind of take it easy a little bit. But with my older brother, it got kind of ruthless. But one thing I'll just say, you made a really good point there that just got me thinking to make this point. It's very, very important to ask for help if you're struggling, or even better, if you think you might struggle down the road. And this is one of the things I often tell people, to regularly manage your finances. So once you've got to a place that you want to be, keep an eye on it, think about the future. And by the future, I'm talking about the next 12 months. What does that look like? So if there's a prospect that your employment may change, for example, if there's a prospect that you're expecting a change in your personal circumstances, that might be through relocation, that may be through expecting a child, that may be through, you may be thinking about retiring, you may be thinking about buying a new car, moving home, whatever it might be. It's really important to regularly manage that situation. And you made a really good point about talking to people. There's a lot of organizations out there to help you manage debt if you ever get stuck. So the Money Advice Service, the debt charity Step Change is also out there, but there are Citizen Advice Bureau, there are literally loads out there. So it's very, very important to talk to people. I saw a really interesting survey at the beginning of this year, actually, where even financial service experts find it difficult to talk about money or money problems. And the survey that I saw, I won't tell you which organization it was, but the survey was looking at whether employees were more comfortable talking to their line manager or talking to somebody else about mental health problems, about physical health problems, about money problems. And money problems were one of the lowest things they were more confident talking about. They really just didn't want to kind of, put themselves in that vulnerable position where they're saying, well, I'm struggling a little bit. Now, obviously, if you're in the financial services industry, you're expected to be confident with money, but just goes to show that we all need help sometimes. And, don't be afraid or ashamed or embarrassed to ask for help. Often you'll find other people are going through similar situations as you, or they may have gone through that situation and now they've kind of seen a few things, seen how certain things worked and other things didn't work. They can just talk to you about, some best practices or the type of help that they got. So I just think it's really important that people open up about it. Don't make it a taboo subject. Money is one of the last things that should be taboo. With all the things going on in the world, that should be one of the easy things to talk about. We all need money. We all have money, to varying degrees. Let's just make sure we're, getting the support that we need. And whether that's through debt charities, friends, family, colleagues, HR can often help you with that, occupational health. There's so many sources of advice and support that you can get. But one thing you should not do is suffer in silence. Absolutely.
I really like that. Thanks, Calvin, for that. And the resources that Calvin mentioned will be in the show notes for people to access as resources. as well. A couple of interesting points there, and we're recording this at the I would say the end of March. It was the in the United Kingdom, and it was the Chancellor here did the financial statement yesterday, and things are going up. That's having a
not a little bit either.
Yeah, things are having a real impact, aren't they? And I suppose this is the time, isn't it? It really focused my mind actually to be thinking about your ingoings, your outgoings, what you need, how you're going to manage it, how you are going to manage that impact as well. So I think this is timely, isn't it, really, because it's gonna impact everyone, whether that's on your taxation and what things, food costs in the shops and things like that. So it is a time to think about money.
Oh, absolutely. And coincidentally, it's Debt Awareness Week this week as well.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
So this is an initiative launched by Step Change Debt Charity. It's been going for a couple of years now, and it's just about raising awareness around debt. Many of us at some point in life will face debt, and again, to varying degrees, but we often have money, let's call it money problems, because when we talk about debt, the word debt has very negative connotations, right?
It does.
And you said, the D word, but actually what debt is debt is something owed from one person to another person. Okay, so debt means somebody, an individual, an organization owes somebody or some other organization something. Now, we usually talk about it in terms of money, but I'll just give a brief example of why I say debt necessarily isn't a bad thing. I had lunch with a good friend of mine, Alisan Kamara, who's on LinkedIn, so connect with him. He's a really proactive D&I advisor in the UK, and is doing some absolutely brilliant work with some interns as well. But he took me out for lunch a few weeks ago, and we had a really good lunch. And I said, okay, thank you so much. That was really, really good. Next time we go out, it's on me. That's a type of debt.
Yeah,
because
yes.
Right, so he paid for that one. The next one's now on me, so I've got a debt to him. A really, really basic example may be, I need to take, I'm on a phone call, I needed to make a note, I don't have a pen to hand. Actually, Dawn, you've got a pen right next to you. I've taken your pen, but I've gone home with that pen. Now, perhaps I've lost the pen or I've left it at home, so I actually owe you a pen, right? But that's a type of debt. So, people use debt for all sorts of reasons. So people use debt or to borrow money to invest, and that investment may be to purchase a property. That investment may be a student loan for your tuition. Businesses use debt to grow or invest. So they may purchase a office space. They may use that debt to employ staff, etc., etc., etc. So debt in itself isn't a bad thing. It becomes a bad thing when it becomes problem debt. And problem debt occurs where you've mismanaged your finances effectively. Now, you may have missed a payment. You may have paid less than you're supposed to. You may be late on a payment, or you may have made that payment, but the payment bounces back, or it's reverse, as some organizations may call it. That's when you've got a problem, because you're going to get charged, you're going to pay interest, and actually you're in a cycle where you've borrowed money, but you're not repaying that money because of the charges, the interest, and all the rest of it. You're going backwards. You're not benefiting from that. So problem debt's where we really want to, what we really want to avoid. But debt within itself, isn't a bad thing.
I really like what you said about that, because I think as you said, the word debt has unfortunate connotations, and it's not necessarily the case. So you can get a debt, so like a student loan, to invest in your education that will help you to earn more money. Absolutely. Your mortgage on your house is an investment that will increase in value. So that's sort of, I suppose, acceptable debt. But I suppose when you were talking, I was thinking about, so how do people feel about debt? And is it a cultural thing? Is it related to what you said earlier about how people think about money and talking to about it? I remember having a conversation yesterday when I said, oh, I'd be embarrassed to have a debt, to a personal debt to someone, you know, so I don't borrow money. So, you know, because I don't want to be embarrassed by if I couldn't pay it back, or I would only borrow it if I knew I could pay it back, and sort of like having those sort of, I suppose, risk conversations about what's the debt for, how likely are you be able to pay it back, how much money have you got in total, what's the impacts that's going to have if you can't pay it back or if your circumstances change. I suppose those are the conversations about, like, having conversations about money is the things that you need to do, so the actual debt, whatever that form that may take, can be put into context, really. What do you think, Calvin?
That's good. Oh, that's a really good point. And you know, none of us wants to be in debt. We all want to kind of be in the black, right? We all want to be in a plus. We don't want to have to owe anybody anything, generally speaking, but most of us will be using some form of debt in our day-to-day lives. And we may not necessarily think of it as debt. And I'll give a really simple example, your mobile phone. Now, what generally happens is you will buy a phone, whether it's an iPhone, Samsung, whatever it might be. You'll buy that phone, you will get the phone at a discounted rate. You may even get it for free, but on a monthly basis, for a period of time, 2 years, 3 years, whatever the contract is, you will be repaying that phone until it's paid off. That's the type of debt. You owe that phone company those payments, right? But we don't think of that as a type of debt. It's just a phone, or it's just, you know, I need to get the phone. This is how you do it. Yeah. So it's just about the way you think about what debt is and how you use debt to, you know, get through your day-to-day lives, I suppose. You know, you have to live somewhere. So whether you have a mortgage or rent, you still got a contract, you have to pay that rent every month. Likewise, you said, oh, weekly, whatever it might be, and you still have that mortgage, so you still got to pay that, but you don't think of often people don't think of their home as a debt. They think it's as an asset. This is my home, but actually you've got a mortgage to pay, and the mortgage is a debt. So it's just about the way we think about things. So debt, again, and I'm not encouraging anyone to go and, you know, take a whole bunch of loans or anything like that. Just think about what it is you're using that debt for. Is it a benefit to you? You know, are you comfortable with your level of what we call exposure? So your level of how much money you're borrowing. And do you need to actually borrow that money? Think about these are the types of questions you need to be asking. Okay, you need to borrow it. Do you need to borrow it now, or can that wait until? Do you need that upgrade today, or actually is the phone that you have now, is that going to be okay for the next 2 years? I know your contract's up and you could get an upgrade, but really, do you need to sign another contract to get another phone for another 2 years? And it's just thinking about how you use debt to manage your finances. And you made a good point earlier about, you know, culturally, you know, maybe something, you know, you don't like to have debt, etc., etc. There is a difference culturally between different age groups and how they think about debt. And there's definitely also a ethnic lens on how people think about debt. And generally speaking, people from the Afro-Caribbean community really don't like debt. But again, we've spoken about how you can use debt to your advantage and use debt to invest, to grow, and to become more financially prosperous, or in other words, to accumulate wealth. And that's a huge gap in our community. We don't think about how we can use debt to invest for growth for the future. And I think that's part of the conversations I'm having more online and offline with our community. But yeah, really, really good point there. Interesting thoughts.
Thanks, Calvin. And that leads on to, you talk about building wealth isn't necessarily about your income. So we're talking about investing for prosperity, I guess, and that's not necessarily linked to how much you earn or what you're getting in. So do you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, well, when we talk about wealth and we talk about financial prosperity, income isn't necessarily wealth. And wealth generally is something tangible that you can hand over to the next generation, your children, your spouse, for example. So we're talking about things like your pension, we're talking about things like that insurance policy, we're talking about things like that investment that you've got. And it doesn't matter how big or small it is, but it's something that you've got that is yours, that grows, etc., that maintains or grows its value. Your income, generally speaking, if you die, generally that's gone. And I was going to say your income doesn't grow. Of course, your income grows, but to varying degrees, and whether it grows in line with inflation, that's another story. But income is important to accumulate wealth, because if you don't earn enough money to pay that extra bit into your pension, or buy that insurance policy, or put that money into the investment, or invest it in a business, etc., then of course you're not going to be able to accumulate the wealth. But your income in and of itself isn't wealth, so to speak. It's part of the wealth bubble, and it's a great way of accumulating wealth, but that on its own doesn't give you wealth. And I'll give you a real life example if I use myself. My salary a few years ago was just about average across the UK, and I was still able to invest, increase my pension contribution, bought a few stocks and shares, and also have a life policy, which meant that, God forbid, something happened to me or my partner, the other person will be financially comfortable to pay off the mortgage. We've got 4 children and still live a reasonably comfortable life. And that was on, just above average for the whole UK. So, but at the same time, I did manage my finances, as you would expect, very, very closely, to make sure I understood exactly how much I had coming out of my account every month, how much I've got coming in, and what my monthly disposable. So what's my spare money? What's the money I've got that I can play with? And once I established what I had available, I was able to then say, okay, well, I like going out. I still like I still like trainers, and I still like all these nice things. But for every nice thing I buy, I'm going to make sure I put an equivalent amount into. I'm going to buy some more shares. I'm going to, buy some different shares. I'm going to pay a little bit more into my pension pot, for example. So it's just how you think about that income and what you use it for, whether it just goes away into the ether, or actually you're building something, and that something lasts and is something tangible that you can then pass on to the next generation. And that's what we mean by generational wealth.
Yeah, and that's a conversation, particularly in our community, that's had quite a lot, but should be had more. It's around no matter how good your job is, what are we going to pass down to our children, and to keep that money, I guess, in the community and in that. And some people are better at doing that than others, by investing and building things, and having an investment in the future. And it's about how you can do that. I really like what you said about even though you had an average salary, a bit of it was about investing for the future. And I think that goes back to what we were saying earlier about talking to children and what's going to happen later. And I know that children never think they're going to get old, but they do, because I did. And that sort of like, so what that mean, and what sort of lifestyle do you want to live, and how's that going to be paid for, because the things that we relied on, when we were younger, that don't exist anymore. And you're supposed to, I suppose you need to keep an eye on the mood music, what's going to happen. There's going to be less reliance on the state, isn't there? And people are going to have to be more self-sufficient, and and that leads on to the next thing, actually, about sort of the links to financial health and well-being, and be that physical or mental health as well. I know that you're quite interested in that, Calvin.
Absolutely. I'll just say one quick point about the income again before we move on to that one, and I will answer both questions. Just with regards to income, I was on an average salary and I was still able to invest. I've known people who have had very large salaries and don't have a lot of monthly disposable income.
Yeah.
Because what tends to happen is when your income grows, your lifestyle matches that, it grows to match that. So
Yes.
you may travel more, my home as an average income earner is not going to be the same as an income earner of 60, 70, 80 plus K. Your car may be that bit nicer with the extra mods and extra toys on it. So it's, again, income in and of itself isn't necessarily wealth. So, but it plays an important part in that. And if you can accumulate more income, or get more income for your salary, and manage the outgoings that you've got, which increases your disposable income, that is a pot of money that you can really make good use of if you think about the future and in terms of what you want your future and your lifestyle to look like. So I think it's important to note that just because you earn six figures doesn't necessarily mean you're set for life, you're guaranteed. If your lifestyle is commensurate with the level of income that you've got, then you may still not be able to invest. So just understanding money, understanding the how that disposable income plays a more important role is crucial. And this is where inflation plays a part, because obviously if your salary is only gone up by 2%, 3% for the year, and it was announced yesterday, inflation's at 6.2%, expected to rise to 7.4%. Some analysts are talking about 10%. That salary that you've got is all of a sudden not going to go as far as it used to a year ago. So just thinking about, okay, well, if my money's not going as far as it used to, how can I rein that in? What can I do to make sure that I'm not 6%, I'm not 8% down in terms of what I was able to do before, if that makes sense. So that's important. And just about the health and well-being side of things, understanding money is really, really important for financial health. But it also plays a part in your physical health and your mental health. So what I call that is the trio of wellness. And the reason why I think it's a trio is because and without getting into the medical side of things, so there may be, technical medical reasons why your physical health may not be where it needs to be or where you would want it to be. But if we talk about, how you eat and whether you get enough exercise, things that are within your control generally, if your finances aren't where it needs to be, potentially you can't afford to buy the organic food or the field reared meat or the sun ripened fruits and veg and all the rest of it. So, and likewise, you may not be able to afford, your disposable income may not afford you to go to that gym that's in your local area, because actually you can't afford an extra 40, 50 pounds a month. Otherwise that will have to come from somewhere else. So understanding how that affects your understanding how finances affect your physical health is important. And what happens as a result is, if you're not eating well, we know the type of foods you eat can affect your mental health and your emotions and your mood. So that can affect that, and that your mood and your emotions can then affect the people around you. And then we've got the circle. If your mental health isn't right, then actually you may not be forthcoming with managing your debt or your finances, because actually I'm afraid, I'm embarrassed, I'm ashamed, or I just can't face it. I just don't want to tackle that. It's just going to stress me out. It's going to push me over the edge. And if you're not managing your financial health, again, that affects your physical health. And this is that cycle. So it's really important to note how they all interlink. And I think there's been a lot of work historically on physical health. More recently, over the past 4 or 5 years, there's been a lot of focus on mental health. We're now starting to see more conversations around financial health, because again, they all play a key part in each other. I don't think you can have really one without the other, because they're completely interlinked. And this is one of the reasons why, again, I'm really proactive in encouraging people to understand money, get that support that they need, whether that's through the charities or through professionals such as myself. There is help out there. Absolutely don't suffer in silence.
Definitely, really like that, Calvin. And as we said earlier, links to people who can help and to Calvin's business, other resources will be in the show notes. And Calvin, you had a book recommendation that I was really, really interested in. Tell us about that.
Oh, yes. Oh, it's on my bookshelf, actually. It's a book by Carter G. Woodson.
Uh-huh.
It's called The Miseducation of the Negro. If that title sounds familiar, it may do, because actually I didn't notice. I had to look this up myself. But it was the title. It was the inspiration for the title of Lauryn Hill's album, which is an
Oh,
absolute
yeah.
classic, The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill.
Yeah.
Just a little bit of trivia there, but I didn't know that
Loving
myself.
that. Loving that.
But The Miseducation of the Negro was written by Carter G. Woodson, and Carter G. Woodson established the Negro History Week, which subsequently became Black History Month. And why I really like this book, particularly if you're in the DEI space, if you're of Afro-Caribbean heritage and you're looking around wondering why, the school system's the way it is, why you experience certain experiences from childhood through to the commercial world, and even just walking around society, The Miseducation of the Negro answers a lot of questions. It's a very small book. I mean, it's like 70 pages long, but it's 70 pages of absolute power. And I've read a lot of books, particularly, historical books around the Afro-Caribbean experience. And this was the one for me that woke me up to a lot of situations. In the book, what he talks about is how he refers to it as a Negro. Bearing in mind, this book is over 90 years old, right?
That's amazing.
This book is almost 100 years old, and the context in this book is relevant to today. And we had a really traumatic, I wouldn't call it a story, but a traumatic, let's call it let's call it a story with Child Q.
Absolutely.
Right, where we saw the way the teachers treated a young girl, 15 years old, she's a child, in a way that you wouldn't expect anyone to be treated for what they suspected. So they suspected this young 15-year-old girl of smelling of marijuana. Okay, so as a result, rather than calling the parents, rather than speaking to the pastoral lead or speaking to the child to find out what was going on, bearing in mind the child was in an exam at the time, they called the police. Yeah. So having searched the child, they didn't find anything. And without going into graphic detail, do look at the case. They basically abused the child. I mean, there's no other way of wording it. The book, The Miseducation of the Negro, talks to that. And what he talks about in the book is how people still see Black people as inferior, so therefore they treat you that way. The entire school curriculum has been whitewashed to make you think you're inferior. So not only do they think you're inferior, they make you think you're inferior by teaching you one side of history, right? And we've heard people like, I won't name any names, but some of the MPs who will talk about colonialism wasn't all that bad. There were quite a few, positive sides to colonialism and how it benefited Black people. And that's the miseducation that we've been indoctrinated with for centuries. You're taught that your history is about slavery. Your people haven't done anything to society other than taking. You will only ever come to a certain state in society by virtue of who you are. And you shouldn't even trust each other because you're all snakes and criminals who are just going to steal from each other and stab each other in the back at the earliest opportunity. And the reality, when you look around you, I've never experienced that. I mean, I was born in Brixton. I was born in Jamaica. I grew up in Brixton. I went to college in Croydon. And I never saw anything disproportionate that I would say, well, that's a Black thing.
Yeah.
So, but the way you're taught is like, you got to fear each other. You got to fear the Black man. The Black man's a big, angry, powerful man who's going to who's going to kill you, who's going to take your children when you're sleeping at night. And actually, none of that's true. But the way society is, taught is that the black man is somebody to be feared. And at all costs, we've got to remove the black man from societies. And we can do that via the prison system. We can do that by subjugating the black man. So keep the black man at arm's distance, but we're not going to promote the black man. We're going to keep the black man here because he's powerful. He can put in a lot of work. He's very strong. But what we're not going to do is elevate the black man to a position where he's got the power. And then all of a sudden, we're going to have to contend or compete with the black man. It's a really powerful book. It's deep. Like I said, 70 pages, not very much, but he lays it all out in the various chapters in terms of why they were in the situation at the time. And bearing in mind that was 100 years ago in America, but actually rereading the book recently is completely relevant to 2022 here in Britain. So that will be my book recommendation for anyone who wants to understand where we are, why George Floyd keeps happening, why you still hear the same rhetoric in the media, why we still have a lack of representation in positions of power, in just the positive images we see in the media, everything. It really spells it all out. It's 100 years old, but absolutely relevant to today, which basically just suggests that we still haven't made the progress that we need to make.
Thank you for that, Calvin. I think I like the sort of like the analogy you made between a book that was written 90 to 100 years ago and what's happening today. So I think it will be a really interesting read and very relevant for our listeners and our viewers. So tell us a little bit about your business. You sort of alluded to it through our conversation, and I think you've got an offer for our viewers and listeners as well.
Yeah, so Gold Star Consultancy, we're on LinkedIn, we've got a website. The website needs to be updated, but it's there. So that's www.goldstar-consultancy.co.uk. You can also connect via LinkedIn and Facebook as well. And essentially what we do is we offer mentoring services and financial coaching services for organizations. We also offer diversity and inclusion training to organizations as well. So I'm working with a number of organizations in that space. I'm working with 2 organizations at the moment who have asked me to mentor their Black men within those spaces, which is absolutely powerful. The gentlemen are benefiting from that. They're building their engagement, they're building their confidence, and we're having some meaningful conversations where they now feel more empowered, but also more involved with the organization. And the phrase that keeps coming up time and time again is, we've never had anything like this before. This is amazing. So from a business to business point of view, I do mentoring, financial coaching, and diversity inclusion training. I also alluded to the fact earlier that I also now do business to client services. And on that basis, I do mentoring and also financial coaching. So once upon a time, you can go into your branch, your bank, and you can speak to your bank manager and sit down and have a good look at your finances and decide, what your goals are, where you want to be, what the barriers are with a view to moving forward. Bank branches are closing at a massive rate. The last stat I saw was they're closing at a rate of 50 per month.
Wow.
And that was pre-pandemic. So I don't know what the rates are now, but they're closing really, really rapidly. So that service isn't as available as it once used to be. Now, obviously with digital services, you can get your apps and you can do the transactions yourself, but where do you get the advice from? And this is where I come in. So I can help you to achieve your personal financial goals, help you to understand how to budget, and just building your financial confidence. I've had 15 years as a senior manager within a global bank. I've helped thousands of customers to achieve their personal goals. But I'm not just going by my, experience. I've also got banking qualifications. I am a chartered banker, and I've now successfully passed my master's in retail banking. So I'm not only qualified, but experienced as well to help customers and clients achieve their financial goals. So the offer I've got for your listeners today, Dawn, And because I love you, and because I want to really
Thank you.
help as many people as possible, I'm offering anyone who messages me, Dawn15. So message me, Dawn15, directly to my LinkedIn. You can contact me via my website, and I'll offer you 15% discount on any services, whether that's business to business, business to personal, business to client, for all of your listeners today as well. And it's my pleasure to do that.
Oh, thank you so much. And the links to that very good offer will be in the show notes. So thank you for that. We haven't talked about health and well-being for you personally. So I ask all of my guests this on the Dawn Jarvis show, and it's related to the fact that I'm a nurse and I'm really interested in entrepreneur and business owners' health and well-being. So the question is, how do you manage your own health and well-being? You're a busy man, you're a father of 4, you've got a lot going on. And in addition to that, how do you manage to stay focused, positive and productive in these busy times?
Oh gosh, please don't list all the responsibilities I've got again. Just say it, just say no, it's a really, really good question, actually. Because as part of my role as a mentor, I help people to build their mental health space, and how they can make themselves feel better in that way. Wow. So I think for me, somebody that mentored me once told me, and this is part of the advice I often give people, when you think about who you are or what makes you you, there are generally 3 spaces that we spend our time. And those spaces are at work. You spend a lot of time at work, right? 8 hours, 9 hours, and for some people more. When you're at work, you're Dawn Jarvis, the entrepreneur, you're Dawn Jarvis, the manager, the coach, the leader, you might be the admin clerk, you may be the customer service officer. That's who you are, but that's not really who you are as an individual, right? The second space we spend time is at home. Not a lot of that time sleeping, but the other time is you might be at home as Calvin Cowell, daddy, husband, son to my mother, and you play that role. You don't play the role, but you're involved in that role. You're activist in that role. And as in that role, you have lots of responsibilities. You have lots of duties that you have to manage to get through that day. The other space that we should and we don't spend enough time in is the space that makes us who we are. So this is a third space. A lot of people, before becoming dad, husband, wife, mother, the clerk, the manager, the admin assistant, whoever they are, once used to enjoy doing something. And for everyone, it's different. So for some people, might be playing Monopoly. We spoke about Monopoly earlier, and you got a buzz from that. You got a thrill from engaging in a team activity and building the bond with people. For other people, maybe going to the gym and just getting that release, or going to play football with your friends on the weekend, and maybe going shopping on the weekends, and maybe playing video games. I can't tell you how many men, especially, tell me they used to love playing video games, but because they became a father, because they got married, they didn't want to be seen to be, or because they got senior position, they don't want to talk about the fact that they play. I play video games, and I'm on Call of Duty. So if anyone wants to see me online, come see me on Call of Duty. We'll see. We'll have to check out what's going on there. But people are afraid to admit that they do that, or sometimes they even avoid doing it because they don't want to be seen as whatever, when actually they really enjoy that. So I would, and I live by my own values, so I'd really encourage people to find that third space, because it absolutely gives you a breakaway. It allows you to be you. It just allows you to be free again. Step away from the roles of dad, mum, sister, brother, uncle, care and duties, manager, CEO, whatever your role may be, and just do what you enjoy doing. And what I find is that, and this is certainly the same for me, if you spend too much time in one space, it's not great. So there's got to be balance. If I'm playing video games all the time and I'm not looking after the family. That's a problem, right?
Yeah, sure.
If I'm working all the time, but I'm not spending enough time in my own space, that's a problem as well. That affects your mental health. Likewise, if I'm dad all the time, but I'm not doing enough to make money, or I'm not, again, spend that time in a space where I can just go and shout at some people running across the pitch, kicking, or when my team wins and just shouting with euphoria. For me, that's a problem. And this is when mental health can creep in, because you then find your life to be monotonous. You then find that you're not operating at your best. And that's whether you're operating at your best as a family person, and by family, I don't just mean, if you're a parent, etc. It could just be your social life, what you do with your friends. You may have good friends that you've got a real tight click with, and that's okay. But if you're not operating at your best because you're not spending the time doing stuff that you enjoy, just you, not you're doing it because somebody next to you likes it, but stuff that you like to do, that's a problem. So it's all got to be balanced. And far too often we spend a lot of time at work, and the rest of the time's at home in that role, without spending the time in that third space. So I'd encourage everyone to just think about what that third space looks like. And hey, don't worry about what anyone else thinks about it. If you like dressing up and putting on makeup and just going for a walk, that's okay. If it's going to play football with your friends, playing on the PlayStation, whatever it might be, that's also okay. That's you time, that's your space. And let nobody interfere with your space. But everything has to be in balance. Too much of any one of those becomes a problem, because it affects the environment for the other two as well. And that would be that's what I do. And that's the advice I would give anyone that I mentor as well. So, but really interesting question, because I don't think we get asked that enough. What are you doing to manage your mental health? And that's a brilliant question.
Good. And your focus and productivity and positivity, how do you manage that?
Focus, yeah. Again, I'm just going to go back to the same thing. I think it's for me, it's about planning.
Yeah.
I always set myself goals.
Yeah.
And generally they're long-term goals, but I also have shorter goals as well. So I'm thinking, okay, 3 years from now, this is where I want to be. But okay, this year, definitely I've got to achieve this, that, and the other, because without that, I can't move on to the next phase. So, and this is going to sound really, really cheesy. So forgive me, and forgive me to all the listeners.
I will forgive you.
But this is the way I do it, and everyone's different. But I set New Year's resolutions.
Oh, cool. I like that.
But I always achieve my resolutions.
Yeah, that's the difference, isn't it? I
don't make them. I don't set unrealistic resolutions. Right, I'm gonna get £1 million this year. This is the year I'm gonna get that £1 million. Or this is the year I'm gonna get that CEO role. I will set resolutions based on what's within my control, so that I know I can do it.
Yeah.
For example, okay, I'm going to go to the gym 3 times a week this year. I only went twice a week last year. This year, I'm going to step it up. I'm going to get fitter. I'm going to go 3 times a week this year. I can do that, right?
Yeah.
That's within my control. I can absolutely do that. Another example of a resolution may be, I'm going to spend more time with the kids this year. Mm-hmm. I'm often in the room with them, but I'm talking about spending time with them, doing those boring things that I know they like, but I may not necessarily like it, but actually I don't spend enough time with them. So I'm going to spend more time. Enough time, maybe an extra hour a day, an extra hour a week, but I'm going to spend more quality time with the children.
Brilliant. I love that.
My resolutions are always goals within my control. They're always goals based on what I think would, the 3 areas we spoke about, would make that better. Mm-hmm. And they're always goals that will make me better as a person. But I always set them, and I always reflect on the year that's been and think about, okay, what does a good next year or forthcoming year look like for me? okay, well, for me, I'd like to do more stuff with podcasts.
Yeah. Cool.
So it just individually, what you want to achieve, but just make it realistic. But that's what I do, and it seems to be paying off so far.
That's brilliant. What I like about that is that what you said has been about being realistic, and also what I also like is that you can actually measure whether you've been successful at that stuff, which I think is the key with any goal or resolution. How will you know when you've been successful, and what does success look like? So I really, really like that. So thank you so much for being my guest today,
Absolute
Calvin.
pleasure.
It's been really, really good. And we've talked about a lot of things. And I think what we've talked about has been really, really useful. It's definitely resonated with me. And I think there's a lot of nuggets there. But as we come to the end of the podcast, is there one final thing that you want to sort of leave the audience with, one actionable point that they can go away and do?
I think it is, what I would say is to set goals.
Yeah.
I think if based on the conversation we've had today, set goals. Now that's going to be different for everyone. So excuse me. And whether that's around physical health, mental health, financial health, start thinking about setting goals. And we're not talking about setting 10 goals, but maybe 2 goals. Set 2 goals for this year. 2 goals that will help you in your work, home, or your individual life, that will benefit you. So if you're not spending enough time in that space that you really enjoy, one goal may be to dedicate an hour a week for me time. And in that hour, you're going to just go shopping, not with the kids, not with the hubby or the wife or your friend. Just do your own thing. Leave your phone at home if you have to, whatever. Play their games if you want to, whatever. But set goals. Keep it realistic. So make sure it's within your control. So you're not depending on somebody else. You're not depending on the environment. And just work towards it. You'll feel a lot better for it. You will constantly grow as a person. And it helps your mental health significantly, because actually you feel like you're moving forward. You don't feel like you're in the same space that you were 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years ago. You feel like you're evolving. So set goals, 2 goals, and go for it. And you can do it. That's
amazing. Thank you so much. And that's it for the Dawn Jarvis show today. It's been a good one today, and I hope to see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.